Now, there were 99 minutes on the clock when Flynn Downs scored to claim the win over Watford. 3-2, the final score. But does it keep the automatic promotion hopes alive? That was certainly all the talk leaving the ground yesterday. Alfie, I'm going to start with you. Get your thoughts on the game yesterday. It was not great for the heart, was it? We left it late, to say the least.
No, it's obviously a stressful one, but I mean, to answer the question, is it back on? I think first to address that, maybe, maybe there's a chance just because of the results elsewhere. I think it's certainly going to make it a more interesting end to the season. We wouldn't have predicted that Leeds, Ipswich, and Leicester wouldn't barely get a result between them this week. To be very clear about what will need to happen for it to be back on, they're going to have to win all 5 of the games that are left. That's quite simple. And if they win all 5, they need to hope that Leicester or Ipswich drop a result or 2, basically. They'll definitely finish above Leeds if they do that. So there's every chance. But what they will do is they'll go into this last period now with loads more confidence. But in both of the games, they started really well. Neither of them were a perfect performance. Started really well, got the comfortable lead, and then just tailed off for some reason. And particularly against Watford yesterday, the second half or the period before half time, letting them back in the second half as well. It wasn't brilliant, and Russell Martin was really quite frustrated at what it took to win yesterday. That being said, it's always the best way to win, and the limbs were fantastic. It was a little bit contentious, a little bit controversial, and that winds people up as well. So all in all, it was a good week, a great afternoon at St Mary's. But there's definitely things they need to improve on. We know that.
Yeah, because the goal difference might come into play as well at the end of the season. Glenn, obviously we got off to the best start with the goal inside the first minute. Was it 57, 58 seconds? It was the perfect start. And I was thinking, right, here we go.
Yeah, I mean, it was... I think we said about Watford last week that when we've played them before, they don't look a team that's big on heart, really. Particularly in the cup game, they kind of sacked it off as soon as we went ahead. So their defending was diabolical on both the first 2 goals. They didn't get out to Adam Armstrong at all. Obviously, no one marking Smallbone in the middle for the first goal. Second goal, they let Walker Peters escape from 2 men, I think it was, and then the guy sliced it. Brooks kept it in, Adams scored. So it looked like they were dreadful and couldn't really be bothered. But they've obviously got, with their having got rid of the Valerian Ishmael, they plan with Tom Cleverley at the moment till he gets sacked in a few weeks' time, no doubt. They had something about them, and to be fair, they were the better side for the rest of the game. There were periods of the second half, maybe not in terms of creating chances in the second half. It was probably fairly even, but I felt that they were the better side in the second half, and I don't know if that was just me being very frustrated with us almost trying to force things. It seemed like we weren't knocking the ball around as well as we were in the first sort of like 25 minutes of the game, and Watford were getting closer to us, and we were trying to force it, and it just became a little bit tense. I thought there was all the passing around at the back was just a little bit more stretched, and then Bazunu would get a bobbly one played back to him and play an air shot, and we just about got away with a few things. But yeah, it was. I mean, we did step off the gas after we went 2-0 up, and this is a common theme. And when we do that, we're not good enough to keep teams out. I mean, it would be nice if we could have a duff 20 minutes and, in yesterday's game, still go in 2-0 up. But we just don't seem to be able to do it. If we're not playing at 100% and looking to go forward all the time and put the other team under pressure, we let goals in. And it just seems to be, there were a couple of warnings before Watford scored, and they get that one before half time. I mean, the second half could have been different with the if Ryan Fraser's goal hadn't been wrongly, as it turns out, disallowed. It would have made everything that happened after it sort of like slightly irrelevant, and we wouldn't have all been having heart attacks in the 99th minute. But there you go. To get it was a good equaliser. Watford got. It was a very good finish by the lad to make it 2-2. And then all the controversial stuff at the end. And for all Tom Cleverley's whinging and Daniel Backman's whinging and Ryan Porteous' whinging, I really do not care one bit. You win some, you lose some. I don't think it's conclusively a handball, and I don't think there's any way a referee and a linesman are going to spot it, even if it is. So happy days. Let's have it. And if they weren't wasting so much time in extra time, then the game probably would have ended. But I think it was the first thing I got told when I started playing football about 50 years ago. You play till the game finishes. Why are you moaning about it? The time added on is just a guide. There you go. End of story. And we live to see if it's still on another couple of weeks at least.
Is it still on for you, Steve?
It's slightly more back on, I think.
So sitting on the fence.
No one wants to say it.
No, I mean, I think. I mean, you look at the bookies odds as an example. After I think ahead of the Coventry game, I think we were 16-1 to finish in the top 2. We're now 13-2. So that's come in a lot. So the bookies are obviously looking at the form of all 4 teams, the sort of collective sort of bottle of certain teams who have clearly. I mean, you look at Leicester; they just look a team that are a bit of a shambles at the moment. Nobody seems to be happy with the manager, which is mad when you've been top of the league all season. And yeah, it just seems a very unhappy place, which given all the sort of financial uncertainty and everything else is, I guess, slightly understandable. But they've been winning games more often than not, and all of a sudden they're not. And yeah, who knows? I said probably 2-3 months ago, Leicester are still catchable. They've not been especially impressive. They've won games because they've got better individual players. But better individual players don't always win games. And now, yeah, maybe teams are starting to find that out and find a way past them. I mean, I sure as hell didn't expect Plymouth to be a team that would trouble them in that way. But yeah, fair play to them. And you look at Leeds and Ipswich. Leeds. Completely sort of dominant force at Elland Road all season, and all of a sudden this week 0-0 at home to Sunderland and 0-1 at home to Blackburn, 2 teams who basically have had, well, certainly nothing sort of positive to look forward to for months. And yeah, I mean, they're kind of almost on Blackburn, probably even on the beach, even though they're technically still in the relegation battle. They've probably been on the beach since last week, I reckon. They've had some wins to give themselves a bit of breathing room. So yeah, it's teams losing games that they're not expected to lose, and I think that's kind of where the shock is. But why are people shocked? We've lost games we weren't expecting to lose. So it's just these little cycles that teams are having. It just so happens that those other 3 are having theirs right at sort of squeaky bum time, where at the end of the day, one of them, if they'd won 3 games last week, they'd be home and hosed. But they're not. So we fight on.
Tell you what, it was a good 10 minutes in the concourse, because I got there literally as Sammy Smodic scored. So there was the big cheer just as I was going through the turnstiles, and then it was quite an entertaining 10 minutes or so watching Leeds desperately dive around in the penalty area. Patrick Bamford, horrendous diving cheat, and but they did. To be fair, they didn't really have a shot. They had a sort of goalmouth scramble, but that was it. And Leeds and Leicester both looked like they'd forgotten how to score. So,
I mean, did you see Patson Daka's miss for Leicester, where he's basically on the corner of the 6-yard box and he shanked it kind of at the corner flag? It was just extraordinary. That just kind of shows the sort of moments you're in there. If Jamie Vardy's in that position, you would certainly back him 9 times out of 10 to be at least hitting the target from there. That was extraordinary. That
it does feel like the league that no one wants to win at the moment. So there's a long way to go.
I'll happily take the trophy. I'm more than happy to win that.
Well, first or second, we don't mind. Alfie, an unchanged lineup from the Coventry game, which we will get onto in just a moment. Were you surprised by that? Did you think you might have rotated things a bit more, just with the busy schedule coming up?
Yeah, to be fair, I was a little bit surprised, just because obviously 2 of the big names that have been left out on Tuesday, Stuart Armstrong and Jan Bednarek, you'd think that they'd be keen to get them back in. Speaking to Russell Martin after yesterday's game, he did, and he does sometimes. make fibs. But he did say categorically there will be changes on Tuesday. There's going to have to be. But I think you see the effects of that because people like Joe Rebo, even Che Adams come off early in the match, and you lose something when they come off. But that's just as a result of playing, so many minutes. So you lose those players. I don't know what changes he'll make on Tuesday, but I hope he doesn't do anything too drastic. You probably need to keep Che Adams playing for every game at the moment, even if it means bringing him off early and losing something at the end. So a little bit surprised. I think he still has a problem with the back line. I mean, a problem in a good way, because I think at the moment they're all doing pretty well. James Bree, although Glen maybe not the biggest fan for some of his performances, but I think he's done all right. Jack Stevens is doing well. Taylor Bellis is obviously in my opinion, the best of the bunch, and Kyle's a no-brainer. But Jan Bednarek's top player as well, so you need to find a way to fit him in somehow, or do you? So I think there's a few problems in the team there, but I wouldn't expect 6 or 7 changes. But I was a little bit surprised. I think Gavin Bazunu is sort of clinging onto his place at the moment as well. But I don't know if we'll ever.
Do you really think so or not?
No, I don't know if we'll ever actually see a change there. But I think he just needs for himself just to step up a little bit. I think, and just whether it's just shot stopping or it's not a confidence thing. But it's just when you see the ball rolling past him, even if it is in the bottom corner, it can be it's obviously frustrating. Luckily, it didn't cost Saints. But the other thing was that Flynn Downs played on Tuesday with a knock, I'm pretty sure, and they had Shea Charles on the bench just in case he needed to come off, and then he goes and plays 99 minutes again on Saturday. So hopefully he's fine to go again and keep him fit and ready, because he's by
Shea
far
Charles wasn't on the bench yesterday, was he?
Not
yesterday. No, it was Manning came back in instead, which is
why we had the Stevens in midfield thing in the second half, because Charles wasn't there. And we were, that was basically what caused the second goal. It was, Downs pushed further forward and Stevens at 6, and they were positionally, they were all over the place on that second goal. So, I do sort of question that.
But he made the sub sooner, though, didn't he? Because that was one of, I think he was critical of himself. The Coventry game, that he didn't make the subs as quick as he should have done. It just seemed to me that I think it was just before the hour mark when he started to make the changes, and then we'd used all 5. So
well, if you have a Rebo and Smallbone starting, they're going to get tired at roughly the same time.
Yeah.
And if you take the 2 of those off, you can't really bring on Stuart Armstrong and Rothwell, because it's 2 number 10s basically, and it's 2 attacking, especially when you're winning the game. So that to me was why he sort of took the decision to bring Bednarek on and push Stevens into midfield. So in theory, you've got a more solid, but it's a world of difference between doing what Stevens does from left back and turning up in midfield unexpectedly almost, than actually playing there and have to be that disciplined number 6. So I don't know. I think that's something that maybe needs rethinking. I'd rather see Shea Charles on the bench, because he can he covers for Downs if he's injured, obviously, and he enables you, if you're starting with a Rebo and Smallbone, he enables you to still keep the midfield solid if you need to close out a game. But
the thing that Russell Martin says on the thing that Russell Martin says on that is that his answer is he wants as many attacking options as possible on the bench, but he doesn't bring on Adozie or Camaldine anyway. And if you're not going to bring him on, but do you need them? I mean, it doesn't look like Camaldine's going to get anywhere near the pitch at the moment. So I would probably keep Charles in my squad as well. I just think that there's no other player that's a direct replacement for someone like Flynn Downs in the team, and he is exactly that.
And a little reminder, Steve, about Ryan Manning. I think he can feel unlucky not to have been in the squad on Tuesday night, wasn't it? And then obviously coming on and getting the assist via the corner, albeit, but it was good. I think he's going to be key for the games that we've got remaining. He's still very much part of his thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, his impact was excellent, actually, I thought. When he was only on, 15 minutes plus added time. But he was involved in everything that we did that was good in that injury time period. It was his cross for Adam Armstrong's volley that he kind of whacked down into the ground. It was his free kick that Bednarek, I think, got the header that was then deflected behind, and then it was his corner that was nodded down for the goal. So 3 sort of key passages of play from an attacking sense that we've probably not quite seen enough of this season when he's been in the side. I don't think. I mean, maybe it's just a case of, well, he's only on the pitch he knows he's only on for 15 plus stoppage time, so therefore he knows kind of what energy levels he's got for that period, and he's not kind of trying to kind of pace himself over a full 90 minutes, perhaps. And therefore he was able just to sprint at everything really yesterday. But no, his impact was excellent and vital really, because I think without, I mean, while Bree was doing a lot of the overlapping runs, the ball was very rarely played to him. And we looked a little bit stodgy down that side. Ryan Fraser had a very peculiar sort of period on the pitch where, other than scoring that goal that was obviously ruled offside, he basically did nothing right, I don't think.
Nor did Stuart Armstrong. Armstrong was terrible.
Literally every touch was overhit. And weirdly, like he's obviously trying to play this wide role, and every time we had the ball and looking to play the ball wide, he drifted 20 yards inside. So we had nobody to pass the ball to out wide. And that was why people were getting frustrated, because we're then having to turn back and try to go the other side. And I don't quite understand why he was so central for that time where when he was on the pitch. I mean, obviously he was in the right place for the disallowed goal, but for the most part, when we were building up against sort of a wall of 9 or 10 Watford players, we needed to stretch the game, and him coming inside and leaving Bree as the only outlet out wide on the left hand side didn't help us at all, unfortunately.
I think we also had the worst case for backward pass so far this season as well. I think Flynn Downs was my man of the match by an absolute mile, but he had the ball in the centre circle, and Adam Armstrong was bursting down the left completely free, and he went all the way back to, I think it might have been Smallbone or Bazuna, and then we lost possession. And you just think he obviously just didn't see him. But in a game where there was a couple of moments where I think a few fans got frustrated that the ball was going back, and a couple of nervy moments. Obviously, Gavin Bazuna had the first one where he sort of air shot it and then was able to get rid of it as well. But that one, I was baffled by that. There was so much space for Armour, but obviously just missed it.
We're just still causing our own problems, though, aren't we? That's the thing. Glenn, I was just going to say, Che Adams, obviously doubling the lead. I think 3rd goal in 4 games. You were talking about how important he is through the middle, and we just look at a slightly different team when he comes off, and it was again the case on Saturday, I felt.
Yes, it was. I'm being set up here, aren't I, to talk about his replacement? But I know what you're doing. I mean, I'm just repeating what I said last week. He's the best centre forward that we've got, and when he's not there, we're a worse team. It's not rocket science. And Alfie made an interesting point earlier on about you have to flog him really, because it's such a downgrade when his replacement comes on, let alone start a game, or you've got to shuffle it and take Adam Armstrong out of the position where he's been so effective all season. So I don't really think there's an option other than to keep Che Adams in the side. It's not just the goal output. It's just as Steve said last week, it's the occupying defenders being some sort of physical presence. When you look at what Watford had at the back, they had Porteous, Pollock, and Hoyt. They're all big units. Now you want to put Adam Armstrong up against them. No, you don't, because he'll just get battered, and Sekumara hasn't got the physicality or the ability to play against players like that. So, yeah, I think Adams, whatever your opinion of him is as a player, he's the best that we've got, and we've got to look after him and make sure he stays in the side. I mean, also he's doing relatively well, bearing in mind, the contract situation and stuff like that, because you hear all the time about players, mentally having issues when they're coming towards the end of their contracts. Some do, some don't. Obviously,
well, we had enough last year, didn't we? There was towards the end of the season.
Yeah, but I mean, he's what's so frustrating about Che is how inconsistent he is. Sometimes within the course of one game, he can look like he's never played football before, and then he's battering defenders around and scored a couple of goals, and that's the frustration about him. But that's why he's playing in the Championship. That's why no one forks out 15 million quid to sign him to play in the Premier League. If he could play at his best level, 90% of the time, as opposed to 40% of the time, which is kind of what he does now, then there'd be a player who would be playing at a higher level than the Championship. And it'll be interesting to see what happens to him next season with regards to where he moves, if he moves, whether we offer him a contract. So it's been an uncertain time for him, I expect. And but at the moment, he's the best we've got, and him being in the side gives us a better chance of getting promoted than him not being in the side.